Maranatha, my PBC family and friends. Pastor Brian here with another quick bite, living the word. Today, words to come from 2 Corinthians chapter 7. I want to look at just one verse, and I want to look at this verse, and then I'm going to kind of look at what brings about this thought or these verses in my mind here. It says, having therefore these promises, dearly beloved, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God. What is this talking about here? Paul, the apostle, in writing to the church at Corinth, says, here's the deal, guys. Because of all the promises we have, we ought to be willing to or desire to be cleansed of all the filthiness, the evil, the wickedness, the things we go, oh, it's not that bad, of the flesh and the spirit. We perfecting holiness in the fear of God. So how do we perfect the holiness? In the fear of God. But having what promises, though? Well, honestly, go back and read the entirety of the book and pick up on every promise that's written in here, not to mention all the promises prior to that in the entire Bible. But let's just look back a couple verses now into chapter 6 and just read what he has to say to us at the beginning of chapter 6 here. He says these words. The end of chapter 6. He says this. He says, verse 17, wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. The promise he's talking about here is the one that says, if we be not unequally yoked with the world together, we would try not to actually live like the world, be combined to the world, but we would be separate from the world. Come out from among them, he says. Come out from among them, be ye separate, saith the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Well, this is a very important doctrine. This is a very important idea here. To come out and be separate. To come out and be separate. In other words, don't try to look like the world, behave like the world, act like the world. Be ye separate from the world. Be ye not unequally yoked with the world. Now, some churches have taken to this and have separated themselves from everything. Anything that disagrees with what any little thing they may do on how they do church or why they when they do church, they'll separate themselves over those things. They'll separate over things that are not godly, fearful things. They'll separate over things that just personal preference or things that are their own ideas or man's ideals. But literally, we should be willing to separate though from the world. It says we should come out and be separate from them. And look at the promise now. What is the promise? And he says, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. Now that word receive basically means to look upon with favor. In other words, here's the point. Sometimes we go, why does it feel like I'm trudging through so much and I feel like I just can't walk through this life? I'm not saying you're not going to have suffering when God's favor is upon you. But honestly, it's different when basically he's on your side. But sometimes if we're walking in the unclean things and we're doing the unclean things, we're not holding on to that promise. We're not claiming that promise that he'll be with us. He'll look upon us with favor. And we're doing the wrong things. Then why should we expect to feel that comfort? Why should we expect to feel that presence? Not that we're not saved. And that's the point. So that's why he would go on to say in chapter 7, let us cleanse ourselves from all filthiness of the flesh and spirit, perfecting holiness in the fear of God, in the fact that we recognize who God is and what place God has in our lives. So if this encourages you today, just remember to come out and be separate. No longer a part of the world. Of course, we're in the world, but not of the world. So I hope this encourages you all today. I love you. We love you. Sorry. I love you. We love you. God loves you. And God's got this.